everybody, and welcome to Inside Rams Camp. Camryn Irwin, J.B. Long, and the head coach of Los Angeles Rams, Sean McVay. We are finally in the last day.
Finally.
We're done with training camp. Talk to me about what was accomplished here at UC Irvine.
I think there's been a lot of things, Camryn. We've been able to really evaluate our total roster. We've gotten a lot of team reps. Sometimes the monotony can set in where we're going against one another every single day, but I've really seen great leadership from both sides of the football. I think there's been a really good amount of learning opportunities, and then I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of these younger players come to life against the Chargers on Saturday and play to the best of their abilities.
Yeah, just 3 days away, but you talk about learning opportunities. Can you maybe give us a specific example where you've seen that development really take place here at camp?
Well, I think one example is, I think our defense has done a great job of being able to create turnovers. And our DBs, our linebackers, they're doing a great job. When they get their hands on the ball, they're catching it, they're making plays. You see a lot of good tight coverages. I think David Long, made a handful of plays yesterday. I've been really encouraged with Bobby Wagner's leadership. You talk about a guy that's been an extension of the coaching staff, and then how that's helped Ernest Jones elevate his level of play has been awesome. I like some of the things that we did in the run game yesterday offensively. I thought we were more physical up front. Cam Akers did a good job leveling off runs. So each day kind of presents a new narrative, Camryn. But that's the good thing about camp is, you're never really satisfied, but it is all, building up to September 8th.
Who are some of those newcomers that we'll see under the lights at SoFi Stadium on Saturday night?
Well, I think when you look at some of those young guys, JB, I've been really pleased with the back end. You really see guys like Jacoby Durant doing an outstanding job. You've seen DK make a lot of plays at the outside corner position. Rush East showed up yesterday. So those three young DBs are players that have really caught my eye. I've been really encouraged with them. I'm excited that Kyron Williams was able to get back out on the field, and I think sooner than later we're going to be able to see him make some major contributions. But there's a lot of guys that have done some good things, but those guys on the back end, those rookies have particularly stood out.
Well, you've mentioned it some time and time again throughout this process that this year's team is not last year's team.
Right.
Now, the foundation might be the same, but the obstacles they will face, well, they could be different. So can you talk about maybe the process and the difference between recreating last year's team versus redefining this year's team?
Yeah, it's such a good question. It's something that we think about all the time. You want to have your core values that guide, our everyday approach, and you want to make sure you're onboarding the right people. And I think when you look at some of the leaders we lost, Camryn, but you're able to bring in a guy like Bobby Wagner, even a guy like Allen Robinson, and then some of these guys like a Havenstein are ready to step up and elevate their leadership by just being themselves. And so that is the thing that's key and critical. And then schematically, it's always about how do we adjust and adapt to our players' skill sets, what do they do best, and then also being mindful of the landscape of the league. And those are things that are ever evolving. And then the injuries come up. I'm sick for Van Jefferson that he was having, I think really coming off arguably his best practice as a Ram, looking great, has a little bit of a setback. Fortunately, we're going to get him back. What that's done is create opportunities for Tutu Atwell to show that he's capable. Ben Skoranek, Brandon Powell, and so those are the positives, even though you don't ever want to have to lose a guy. John Wofford's getting more reps than he would have otherwise, but there's so many different things that you navigate through.
The point you make on leadership there is something that struck me over the course of these, say, 3 weeks. Not that I had any fear of a leadership void, but when, Whitworth steps aside, Hecker goes somewhere else, I come away from Irvine thinking you've got more leaders than spots for captains. Does that make sense?
I agree. I think that's the positive problem for us, JB. And this team, every single year, we always talk about one of the goals is to come together as a team. And how you do that based on the type of guys that you have in the locker room can be illustrated and unfold in different ways. And every single year is a new year. But these guys, they feel connected. There's a real camaraderie that you feel good about, and I think that all starts with the leadership that you're alluding to.
The other thing is the coaching turnover that we've addressed throughout the offseason. Now in this setting, obviously they're getting their hands dirty, but they're also dealing with a roster of 90 young men who have aspirations. How did that all come together for the first time?
It's been really good. I think it's a positive thing where because we've been able to do well, it's led to opportunities for other coaches, but what it also does is it attracts really good coaches and provides new opportunities for me to learn about different ways to do it, for us to be able to collaborate and connect on what is the best way to positively push our players day in and day out. And then really be able to pour into these 90 guys. Obviously, we take a little bit different approach than a lot of teams in terms of the guys that will not be playing in the preseason as opposed to the guys that are playing. But I think you want to create an opportunity for guys to be able to play at their highest, enjoy the experience, and make sure that whether it works out with us or whether it works out with another team or this ends up being the last year that they play football, they're always looking back on this with fond memories and they feel like they were respected, believed in, and really pushed to reach their highest potential.
Well, you talk about coaching staff. Another another new/old addition, Liam Cohen.
Yeah.
He's going to get some opportunities potentially this preseason in terms of play calling. How might that affect this season in terms of opportunities for him?
I think he's a great coach. And, really, whatever the role was, he was always somebody that I heavily leaned on, Camryn. Having the 3 years together, I was a big Kentucky Wildcats fan last year. And, he did a phenomenal job. To go in, build the system and some of the foundational things that we've done together, but really being able to put his own spin on it and then to get him back. He's such a great communicator. He's got such a great way of being able to connect with people, and he'll do a great job. Now, he operates with a limited inventory in terms of the plays that we're running in the preseason, so I think it's more about just getting the calls, the communication, but he did a great job. He's done it before, and I'm really grateful to have Liam with us.
Andrew Whitworth makes his television debut on Saturday. I know you'll be busy, but might you go back on the DVR and catch some of that and critique his performance?
No question. He's already sent me a couple. He's got his house set up with Dan Demetrison. He's got the film. He's ready to really evaluate, and I'm going to be evaluating his broadcast skills.
He's not used to working this hard for the Rams in the preseason, is he?
He's naturally a grinder. I think he knows more about the roster than I do right now. So it's he'll do a great job. You guys know from spending time with him, whether it's with our broadcast team, whether it's with Amazon, I think he's one of those guys that whatever he decides to do, it's going to be a real good movie, and I'm excited about watching the big fella on TV.
Me too.
Now, you had a pretty busy off season. So much has been talked about, obviously getting married, so congratulations in that regard. But I do have a good question for you, which is what's harder to come up with, a game plan or a seating chart for a wedding?
Oh, man, that is a good question, because I would have to say the seating chart was a little bit easier, but it was very stressful to make sure everybody has a good time. They know the right kinds of people, and but the game plan, I usually put myself through a little bit more stress. But both of those are fairly equivalent. That's a good point.
Good to see your father here around training camp. I'm sure you're anxious to get home, too.
Yeah, it'll be good. It's always good to have him around. His guidance, best leader I've ever seen in my life. I never realized how many things I picked up on from him until you get so blessed to be in the role that you're in here, and he's the best. I couldn't ask for a better dad than him.
Well, you talk about picking things up for him. What was something that maybe you utilized this last year, or maybe even going into this year, that you said, yeah, that's definitely from that guy right there?
I think, number one, it's just trying to create authentic value for everybody in the building, calling people by their first names.
Yeah.
It's one thing to ask people how they're doing and to really talk to them, and it's another thing to be present and engaged in that communication. And he had such a great way of connecting, treating everybody the same, but having firm standards and what the expectations were. And I'd like to think that that's very similar to how things operate here. But he is... He's really special, and it's so great for me too, because you forget, even though you're going into your 6th year, it's your dad that still cares about you, and he's going to tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear, and that can be really beneficial. And I think it does humanize me in a way that's helpful. Being around the players, he definitely is. The COVID restrictions weren't for him. He's not social distancing. He's close talking to everybody, but he is about as interactive as anybody, and that's one of the things everybody loves the most about him.
Okay, well, hopefully we get a chance to see him maybe 3 days away as well. Of course, That first preseason game just around the corner. Thanks so much for joining us on our last episode of Inside Rams Camp, of course, brought to you by Unifi Financial Credit Union.